On today's episode of Titus and Tate, college basketball is in the driver's seat of the sports world, Tate, and we cannot be more excited about this. Football is done. The Super Bowl's over. Congratulations to Tom Brady. Blah, blah, blah. Go. Who cares? Boring.
Throw it away.
Get it out of our face.
Yeah.
Because it is our time, Tate. The time is now. We as college basketball people have taken the steering wheel and we said, give it to us for the next 2 months.
Thank you. Finally, we have it. We had no March Madness last year. We have been waiting patiently. It's been a long, cold, harsh winter, but it felt like a new day. As soon as the Super Bowl was over, I saw the bright lights, a new dawn. It's college basketball.
So here's what we're doing today. We're doing a primer because, let's be honest, a lot of you listening to this have not watched a second of college basketball.
And it's okay. It's not your fault. Don't feel bad. We're not shaming you.
Listen, you're going to make excuses. You're going to say it's been a weird year, coronavirus, whatever. You guys don't watch any college basketball to begin with. I mean, that's why you listen to our show and you don't listen to the 1,000 other college
But the question is, are you watching Zion in the NBA? And then think about that.
So we are doing a primer, if you will, a guide to if you're trying to jump in, because there are a lot of people, Tate.
Yes.
There are a lot of people that are like, what do I do with my time now?
In the words of Trey Songz, dive in.
What do I do with my gambling dollars now? I tell you what you do. You do it. You throw it college basketball's way. But where do I start? You start right here. We're gonna do a show that gets you up to speed, gets you to where you can listen to this. And starting tomorrow, you can jump into the college basketball landscape and figure it out. So apologies if for those of you that have been following us the entire way. We love you.
Yeah.
We're gonna do good guys and bad guys at the end. We're still gonna get to all that, but we're gonna first get to basically a recap. Basically, where were we? Where are we now? Where are we going? That's what we're doing today.
Yeah, this is 3 phases of Titus and Tate. This is the Titus and Tate guide to the college basketball galaxy. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to let you know where everybody is, all the players in our universe, and let's get going.
Right off the jump, Tate, I want to plug the Club Trillion Foundation Scholarship. We did it last year. We're doing it again this year. I've already plugged it on the show before, but again, we got a new audience.
Plug it again.
We got a new audience here, so I'm putting out the call. We are giving away a $15,000 scholarship to a Division I basketball walk-on. So if you're listening to this and you're a walk-on, please apply for the scholarship. You can go to clubtrillionfoundation.org/apply. And you can apply that way. If you are listening to this, you are not a Division I basketball walk-on. Reach out to one who is. Reach out to somebody who is. We just want. I want the word out. I don't care. I've already gotten a handful of applications. By the way, I do not decide the winner. I want to make that clear. I don't want people to think that
I do.
It turned out it's Tate. Yeah, a kid named Tate won it last year.
Exactly. Tate Clayton.
Yeah. We have a committee. It's all made up of former walk-ons from all over the country, various levels too. So it's not just like a bunch of blue blood guys. We got guys that played at tiny ass schools. We got guys that played at big schools. And they are the ones who decide the winner. And we've already got a couple of applications. So if that's all we get, if we only end up getting like, a handful, that's fine by me. I don't care. I'm not going to put a gun to someone's head and say you must apply for this. My fear, Tate, is that not enough people know about that. Like there are a lot of guys, a lot of walk-ons out there that would be like, oh my God, I would
take
15.
a scholarship.
Yeah, I'll take 15 grand.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. So I am putting it in the hands of our listeners. Please help spread the word. And that's that. So I just want to plug that in.
This is your bad guy move. We're going to get to that at the end of the episode. We're going to do good guy, bad guy. But this is Titus, bad guy of the week. There you go.
So there's that. That's part one of where we're at with college basketball. Is the scholarship is still on. So now let's talk about the rest of the college basketball landscape. Again, we apologize to those who are the diehards. Those of you that have been in this, it's going to be a lot of repetitive. But that's what this show is. Is this show anything but repetitive?
But that's what most shows are. People want to hit the beats, They want something familiar. So let's.
I've always been confused by that. By the way, that like you hear criticisms of bands where it's like every song sounds the same, and it's like, what did you expect?
Don't you like that song?
Don't you like that song? I don't understand. Like you wanted that techno band to start making country music? I'm confused because the second they do that, they're like, kind of a diversion. Don't love it.
Yep, not my genre.
What are they doing? All right, so let's talk college basketball primer, big picture. Where are we? What are some storylines? I think we obviously have to start with coronavirus, with COVID.
Yes.
I think we have to start with the impact that has had. College basketball last year, the tournament was canceled. College basketball is the only sport, to my knowledge, the only team sport to have its one big champion event canceled, not postponed, just straight up canceled. Every other North American sport
figured it out.
They postponed it. They bubbled it up. They
football they just played.
They just played through. They're like, what coronavirus? We were the ones that fell on the sword. We said, no, hey, it was basically just the calendar. It just didn't work out in our favor, and we had no tournament. So we're looking ahead now, and the pandemic has not gone away. But college basketball is back. Are we going to have a tournament, Tate? That's what's on a lot of people's minds. And the answer is definitively yes.
Yes, officially. Like at the start of the year, we had 100 storylines going into the season. We said, this could happen. That may happen. Watch for this. But the number one thing we said, there will be an NCAA tournament. But we said that with,
we didn't know.
A bit of hesitation. We didn't know if that was going to be true.
A slight question mark on the end of that.
Yeah, it just kind of like trailed off as we said that. But now we officially know it's going to be in Indiana. It's going to go back to the, the home state of basketball, the place where, basketball belongs. And I think, you and I joke about this. We've had some episodes during the pandemic about the war on college basketball. As I sit in the Fox Sports room right now, there is a war on college basketball. You know it. I know it. Rudy Gobert.
Disgusts me to my core.
When he grabbed the mics, the world shuts down. College basketball shuts down. And people have been
Rudy
trying
Gobert never played in college.
Yes.
And makes you think.
Think about it. It goes all the way to the top. But since then, we've been trying to deal with the fallout. And COVID is obviously a big part of this. And I think a lot of people have tuned out because they think, all the postponements, the cancellations. I mean, NCAA.com has a page that has all the updates of every game that's postponed or canceled throughout the entire season. So that's been the story. You have to check every single day to see if the game that you wanted to watch is actually going to happen. I think the biggest game that didn't happen, obviously, is the game that America wanted to see, which is Baylor, Gonzaga, in Indianapolis. You were going to be at that game, and it didn't happen.
I was at the game.
You were physically there at the moment, yes.
I was Eric Andre shaking the gates of the White House. Let me in. What is happening? I found out, I was at the game, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because maybe not. A lot of people disagree with
this. It's just a teaser now.
A lot of people disagree. They were like, I still would have liked to see Baylor Gonzaga play the regular season game. Duh. I want more good basketball. But, from a storyline perspective, you don't want the big finish to happen in episode 3. You want it to happen at the season finale, right? So that's we preserve that. Baylor and Gonzaga are both undefeated, so that's good. Coronavirus as a whole, though. So you mentioned games being delayed, games being postponed, but like all the scheduling's all over the place. You got teams that are on long pauses, like Xavier. I have no idea if Xavier basketball still exists. They've been on so many coronavirus pauses. Baylor, one of the teams that's undefeated, one of the second ranked team in the country, just announced that they're not playing a handful of games coming up. Michigan, the third ranked team in the country, has been on pause for a while.
Texas, the team that won the Maui bump that you and I both believed in at the start of the year could make a real run to the Final Four. They've lost 3 in a row, and Shaka Smart has been dealing with COVID.
Tell the people that have been watching football this whole time and haven't been plugged in, what has it been like? Because as you said, the football just got to charge right through. Basketball, not as smooth, we'll say. It has not quite been as smooth. What has the experience been like, and from your perspective, being a college basketball fan through all this?
I think college basketball, the reason why we feel the effects of this so much more is because college basketball is an environment, it's an experience. There is so much that goes into it beyond the actual physical act of basketball, right? There's so much pageantry around the sport. So a lot of that is missing, which feels very off. But then you have guys like Jim Boeheim who have been around the game forever, and he's making the quips of, who says we need the fans? We're great at home without them. And then, you have the Blue Bloods that, the Cameron Crazies, for example, right? Yeah. Illinois blows out Duke at the start of the year. They beat them by 15. Worst loss for Coach K at home. And that happens without the Crazies there. And Coach K, he's not going to blame, the fact that they don't have the Crazies, but we all know that it has some sort of impact, some sort of so those types of things are strange, right? Not having the pageantry, not having the fans. And then the fact that the basketball is happening. I mean, we were there in Asheville at the Maui Invitational.
So weird.
And it's like these games happen. It feels real. You're in it. You're locked in. Everyone's focused. The refs are locked in. The coaches are locked in. It feels real, But then you kind of like take a step back for a second. You peel back, and it's empty.
But then Matt Coleman hits a game winner at the buzzer. And
there's no sound.
There's no sound. And it's
except for me crying.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, yeah, it has been, I would describe it as... it's like when your mom, you're in the grocery store and you really want Fruit Loops, and your mom is like, we're not getting the Fruit Loops, but I will get this, and she grabs the generic cereal, and then you're home eating, and you're eating the generic cereal, and you're asking yourself the question of like, is this still good?
Can I enjoy
And you're like,
this?
it's better. Is this better than nothing? And the answer is yes, but it's not quite the Fruit Loops. But also, it's like your mom's like, you know, like fine if you don't like this, I'm never
Stop
getting
being
you.
so materialistic. Do you really need the Fruit Loops?
Yeah. So that's where I'm caught in between, because like obviously the pageantry and all of that is missing, and it really is so noticeable. It is not normal. We've been watching this for months now. We were watching the Kansas Oklahoma State game tonight. It's like this feels weird. It's still weird to me that Allen Fieldhouse is empty, and Cameron Indoor Stadium for the Carolina game this weekend was empty, and that's just bizarre, and we haven't gotten used to that. So there's that. The other point I want to make about coronavirus is if you're new to college, but if you're diving in right now, good luck figuring out protocols. Good luck figuring out that has gone completely out the window. And I don't say this as like schools don't have protocols. They still do. Conferences still do. I just have no clue what they are.
Yeah, they're very independent.
They are all over the place. Boston College almost played a game with 4 players. But then this North Carolina, Miami game got called off.
But then Florida State had to cancel the game. It wasn't even Boston College.
Michigan's on pause right now, Tate. To my understanding, Michigan men's basketball team has had 0 positive cases within the men's basketball
But the whole
program.
department is canceled.
But the whole athletic department is paused.
Yeah.
But then there's like a weird thing where like the women's basketball team's coming back with the men's. So my point is, good luck. Like we can't explain it to you. We do this for a living, and I have no idea. As you said, you just kind of pull up your phone and you hit refresh on the slate of games today, and you're like, all right, what are we getting today? I have no idea. That's been very frustrating, and there's obviously a concern moving forward. The tournament's going to happen. We know that for a fact. We know that. I mean, I'm not even saying this as a joke. In all honesty, if COVID just spikes again through the roof in this country, the NCAA, I think it's been clear that they're just going to chug along. They're going to just plow through it, and they're going to find a way. So that is definitely happening. The concern has now been, my God, like the way all these programs are pausing for reasons that are like another great example, Cade Cunningham, who might be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, missed a few games for Oklahoma State because of COVID protocols. And then, as they're explaining to you, to the viewers that this is why he's not playing, they pan to him sitting on the bench. And I'm like, I'm not a scientist. I don't know what the hell's going on, but he should be able to play. I mean, the NBA is kind of doing the same thing with
Kevin Durant had the same thing, yeah.
Yeah. But that's where we found ourselves is long ago. Like I remember when sports started coming back, they would be like, all right, we have positive tests or we don't have positive tests. And that was like kind of the announcements that came out of this stuff. The language, the waters have been muddied so much. I think Baylor's announcement was even like COVID protocol something or other. They won't say guys tested positive or didn't or what. They're just kind of like, we need to reconfigure. And you're like, what?
Yeah, we're reassessing
so what does
the situation.
That mean?
Yep.
Where are we going? And that's definitely been frustrating. So as it pertains to the NCAA tournament, that is where the concern would lie, Tate, is that what happens when these muddied waters start flowing to Indianapolis and there's just some mud in the water and the tournament's about to start and all of a sudden Gonzaga needs to be on pause for 4 days, and I don't know. I don't know what the hypothetical is, but that's the fear, is that there's a lot of ways this could go.
There's a lot of ways, and I think, when we talk about COVID, we talk about the impact. We lost like a primetime matchup. The 2 best teams in college basketball, bar none, Baylor, Gonzaga, were supposed to play. COVID cancels that game. But the real impact of COVID, like you said, is going to happen in the stretch run of the season.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is, a little intimidating about the whole thing, is because conference tournaments, that's the real COVID test, right? No pun intended there. But like if the conference tournaments happen without a hitch and the teams go and play and there's no issues and everyone's sending their test to Mako Medical in my hometown of Henderson, North Carolina, and they're handling business and everything's going well, fingers crossed, all signs point to good. But the problem is if teams say, hey, I've been thinking about this, and I want to win the championship, and I have to spend 3 weeks in Indianapolis in a hotel room, locked up, basically, in a controlled environment. There is no bubble in college basketball. We should say that. It's a controlled environment. So some teams, there has been speculation that a team that, let's say Iowa, for example, that's the Big Ten team, they're fine to go because the Big Ten tournament's in Indianapolis. We go there where the real tournament is. We play the Big Ten tournament, and then we play the real tournament. That's fine. But there's some other, schools per se that say, why would I risk putting myself in a different controlled environment to then have the risk of not being able to go to the main controlled environment? So there's going to be a lot of shuffling the deck, I feel like, and there's going to be a lot of teams trying to put themselves in the position to be eligible and applicable to play.
I want to flesh that point out more because
Yep.
the reason, because this is a talking point that's popped up in college basketball the last couple of weeks, and it's going to continue to be a discussion point of these conference tournaments. So what happened is the NCAA locked in dates. The March Madness is going to happen on these days. It's going to start, I believe, the playing games are the 18th. But the first round starts in earnest on the 19th. This is a problem because Selection Sunday is on the 14th, I believe.
Yep.
I believe it's Sunday the 14th. And if not, the point still stands where the NCAA's protocol for the NCAA tournament is that you have to have 7 consecutive days of negative testing. But that window will overlap with the ends of these conference tournaments. So if you're a team that's playing in the semifinals or championship game of conference tournament, you've already started your testing
window.
Your testing window for the NCAA tournament.
Exactly.
So basically what's happening is instead of being at home in your campus in a controlled environment, you are now, there's the risk of, say, Ohio State is playing Purdue in the Big Ten title game, and we get revenge on Purdue because we have a full team now. Ohio State going into that Big Ten title game would have to be like, cross your fingers that you don't get it from Purdue. And listen, I'm not telling you what, like, you know, like you might be listening to this saying like, oh, come on, what are the chances that's going to happen? I don't know. I don't know what that's been the case with coronavirus the last 11 months in every facet of society, right? Like, it's
yes,
like,
exactly.
It's like some people are like,
this is a microcosm of everything.
So
around
some
us.
people are like, it's not really a risk, just do it. Other people are like, whoa, that's crazy. Because like, what if we do everything right, we go to the Big Ten tournament, we get it from Nebraska, who's like not even going to make the tournament. Then now all of a sudden we might the waters are muddy for whether we can, you know. So all of these things are being talked about, and the solution in a lot of people's eyes, not a majority, but some people's eyes, is let's just avoid it altogether. And as soon as the regular season ends, we take that 1 week buffer and we just stay at campus and practice, and then we hit the ground running for the NCAA tournament. So that's where that comes from. That's something to keep an eye on. Sure.
And it's a big basketball conversation, not just, you know, in college basketball with the conference tournaments, but the NBA has the All-Star game, and it's the exact same conversation because conference tournaments, they are, I mean, look, Duke loves conference tournaments because that's how they boast that they're the best team in the ACC.
That's how they win the ACC.
Exactly. But otherwise, no one really cares about conference tournaments. You know what I mean? So conference tournaments are for TV money, and they're a way for conferences to bring in some money, obviously by those TV contracts. So that is why there is a push to make sure that they do happen, right? So there is that whole angle behind it. So a lot of people are like, well, why all these risks? Like, just who cares about the conference? Or just throw it away.
Right.
But there's a lot of TV money behind that. So that's why it's going to happen.
I think they're still going to happen, but
there could be some teams
some opt-outs.
like Florida State. Yeah. Like, what if Leonard Hamilton says, hey, last year we didn't even play in the ACC tournament and we won it.
We still won it.
So what about this year? We just don't even go to it and we just make the play for the Final Four.
Maybe we'll win it again. Yeah, maybe this year we don't go to it. They'll give us another trophy like they did last year, where we literally didn't play a second.
That is literally, I think, the most fascinating thing. Like, conference tournaments are like, that is the litmus test of where we are in college basketball that week. So
because you and I have tiny brains, we just listen to all these arguments and we're like, I see both sides. Gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we're just pointing it out. We're like, it could be.
It's gonna be interesting. All right, so enough about coronavirus. We got that out of the way. Let's talk about like what is actually happening on the court. What are these teams? What are the narratives? There are two. It's Gonzaga and Baylor are distancing themselves from the field, and the Blue Bloods suck. And those are the two things. If you're programming a college basketball show and you don't have any content to talk about, you talk about one of those. You talk about how bad the Blue Bloods are, or you talk about how dominant Gonzaga and Baylor are. Which one?
The New Bloods, as we're calling them.
The Drew Bloods. The Few Bloods. The Mark Few, Scott Drew.
Or as fans at home that are casual say, the Ew Bloods. Bring back the Blue Bloods.
Where do you want to start with this?
I'll start with an age-old question that you asked me early on in our friendship, and you looked at me dead in the eye and you said, is Scott Drew a good coach? And, you know, the internet was abuzz with this. You have stayed on this corner for quite some time. And I think the question this year, is Scott Drew a good coach, has been answered. And I think it's unequivocally yes. And I think, you know, we should get into this, but I think Scott Drew over time has always been sort of disregarded in whatever way. He's always been, you know, his name would come up and it's kind of scoffed at. You're like, really? Scott Drew's going to be the guy you throw up?
Yeah.
And he was, you know, had not the best reputation because of, you know,
remember like
recruits that he brought in early on.
Was it 5 years ago or not even that far back that like you mentioned Scott Drew's name in college basketball circles and everyone laughs and like, yeah, that guy's shooting his balls off.
Yeah.
How did he outrun that reputation? You just win, baby.
Just keep winning.
Al Davis told us, just win, baby. That's all it takes.
And that's where we are. And since 2012, I got a stat for you. Scott Drew is 2-1 against Calipari, 2-1 against Dana Altman at Oregon, and he's won his lone matchups against Sean Miller at Arizona and Tom Izzo at Michigan
Who
State.
gave you that stat? The SID at Baylor?
Yes. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm fired up. So here it is. Scott Drew, the real crux of the conversation. Why do we care about Scott Drew? Everyone, we're talking about this. Is he a good coach? Where is the marker that he needs to get to? And the marker is simple. It's the Final Four, right?
Yep.
And he
Never been.
Yeah. On a big picture scale, he said it would help take Baylor to the next level perception-wise. And I think that's where we are with the Baylor Bears. The Baylor Bears are a great basketball program. What Scott Drew's been able to do there is honestly a 30 for 30 type story. That what he walked into.
It literally wasn't it? They talked about the scandal. I mean, they haven't done the
Scott Drew the second half
part, but I think they literally made a 30 for 30 about how he got there in the first place. But yeah.
But it starts this year with the historic season. This is where they piggyback off that. They pick up right here. And Scott Drew, the perception of him has always been wrong, I think, or at least harsh probably is the right word.
Yeah.
And this is the year, this is the time where he can kind of make that turn, make that pivot into being one of the top coaches in the game.
We when we talk about Gonzaga and Baylor being better than everybody, I want to make it clear that like the rubric that I've been going off of or the template I've been using is 2005 when Illinois and North Carolina felt like they were miles better than the rest of, and everyone had that circle. It was like, it's going to be Illinois versus Carolina. It ultimately ended up being that, even though Illinois had a scare along the way against Arizona. That's what ended up being. Carolina wins, obviously. So that to me is the standard of like we've been here before, but as the season continues to play out, we have not been here before. This is so much the divide between Gonzaga and Baylor is so much larger in my mind. I don't know. I didn't have a podcast, a college basketball podcast in 2005. But it is unbelievable. It is like when we're talking about these two teams, we're not saying it's definitely going to be them in the championship game. But what is a word you would use if I mean one of them getting upset isn't. It would be pretty surprising, honestly.
But it wouldn't be shocking.
One of them's definitely going to be in the championship game.
Yes.
Like I would be absolutely. It would be the level of Virginia losing by 20 to UMBC. Of shocking to me. And that sounds stupid, and there are a lot of people that gamble for a living that are like, you're a moron, you don't understand how odds work or March Madness, anything can happen. Maybe that's true. I've watched Gonzaga and Baylor all season. I've watched all these other teams all season. My alma mater is one of the teams that is considered a challenger to this dichotomy of Gonzaga and Baylor versus the field. And we're not as good as Gonzaga and Baylor, dude. They're so good. They're so good, and I've never seen anything like it. So there's a lot of talk about it, but rightfully so. It feels to me like in the same way that I remember when Trae Young was playing college basketball, and we would talk a ton about Trae Young, and people casuals, we'll call them, would roll their eyes. They're like, what are we talking? What the hell with this guy again? Like, why are we talking about this guy so much? And it's like, dude, the guy is leading the country in scoring and assists.
He was averaging like 30 and 10. Yeah.
We've never seen anything like this. And that's how I feel about this. It's like it's going to get exhausting talking about Gonzaga and Baylor better than everyone, but it's also, we've never seen anything like this. And that's a phrase we say in college basketball a lot, is we've never seen anything like this. But that's why we love college basketball. It's because that's pretty much always the case. There's always something every year where you're like, I've never seen anything like this. And this year, it's Gonzaga and Baylor being better than everybody.
And I think a lot of, 2015 with Kentucky, I feel was a real big, pivotal moment in college basketball where everyone tuned in because of, the old guard, the nostalgic era of college basketball was Bob Knight, the Indiana teams, so 76 kind of, it strikes a chord with a lot of people. So the fact that we have two new blood powerhouse programs that are currently undefeated, that are basically on a crash course to play each other to see if they can be the next 1976 Indiana team.
I'm glad you said programs, by the way, not teams, because both of these teams were good enough to win. Both of these programs, were good enough last year. They had good enough teams last year to win it. This is not like the stars have aligned. Like, listen, I love all of our Dayton fans, but it's not like a situation like Dayton was last year.
It was a one-time
thing. Like, both of these programs have been built the old-fashioned way, maybe in some cases the super old-fashioned way, the Sam Gilbert old-fashioned way, but the old-fashioned way nonetheless. And here they are, and only one of them can win it, and they're both undefeated right now, and that would be quite a thing to see them.
And we don't get many win-win situations, in sports in general, and especially in college basketball, but Gonzaga, talk about programs and where they are, and kind of as you climb the echelons of like where it means to be one of the top programs, like Gonzaga, when they made the Final Four and they made the title game in 2017, they hopped into this different, they hopped into the Carolina, Kentucky, because recruiting changed.
Right.
They have guys like Jalen Suggs who comes in, and Rui Hachimura and these guys, and they're just like unbelievable talents that they now
they're
reach
not the
into.
plucky underdog trying to get the 3-star to
Exactly.
turn into a 5-star somehow.
So what's the next step? We now win the title. Right. That could happen this year. They take, now we are here. We have finally arrived. You like, suck it, take it. Like, we are here, you know? I mean, like, seriously, that's what it feels like, I'm sure, for Mark Few after all the talk he's had to hear over the years. But Scott Drew, in the same vein, they make the jump just like in 2017 that Baylor made, and they get into the Final Four, right?
Yeah.
And then they are now jumped up in that other echelon. They get the recruits. There's no Scott Drew's a cheater because he gets these recruits. It's because they just made the Final Four.
It should be pointed out that Scott Drew, as to my knowledge, like the guys, the best players on the team were not McDonald's All-American.
No,
he's not winning with McDonald's All-Americans right now. So,
but that's what I'm saying. But you make that jump. They can both make that leap this year. And now we have a Baylor program that gets revered in a different light. Perception changes. Gonzaga is now a part of the Michigan State, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky class for real. Villanova.
Yeah.
Like, we legitimately bring them into the fold. So we add another real powerhouse to college basketball's landscape. So in general, yes, it's fascinating that they're both undefeated. But in terms of the actual landscape and what it means if they do take that step, it's cool because we have more players at the table.
Yeah,
and I think that's good for college basketball.
And that's what we've loved to see with Villanova winning two recently and Virginia winning one.
And it gives you
hope. Have a Virginia Texas Tech title game where the Texas Tech is certainly in that conversation of like a budding program.
New bloods.
Probably fast forward 5 years, Texas Tech is now in Gonzaga's shoes where like they're just trying to. They've been there because they've been to the title game. They were. Shot away from winning the title.
Number 7 in the country.
So, who in your mind give the people right as it stands right now? I threw out this idea of an intercontinental belt because it feels like Gonzaga and Baylor are so much better than everybody else. They have like the two main belts. If this is WWE wrestling, they have the heavyweight championship and the WWE championship. And we as college basketball media have needed to pass around the Intercontinental belt just to make things interesting, just to be like, because those two, when you go to fill out your AP ballot, it's just lock them in at the top. Now is where the fun starts. Who's number 3? And that's become fun conversations to have. I want you to say it, Tate. Please say it. I'm begging you to say it. Who has the belt right now? Who is the Intercontinental belt?
I think we both know it, and I think it's our coach of the program, the cop, Chris Holtman, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And, it's one of those things where Ohio State is a fun offensive team, and they have the right pieces to make a real run in the tournament. And I'm not saying this to blow smoke. I actually like this Ohio State team. I did not like them when they blew out North Carolina in the Dean Dome about a year ago. That really hurt my heart. Yeah, you like that. You like that. I didn't like that.
I did like that.
But this Ohio State really has bought in. I have honestly been surprised at how good they are, but you were very high on them to start the season. So
I was high on them to start the season.
I have been a little bit, kind of coerced into believing in them.
They lost the Wesson brothers, but they had a lot of depth. Seth Towns, I mean, was Ivy League Player of the Year, and he transferred back to his hometown. And Joseph Suing was a transfer from Cal. And I just thought, we were going to be deep, and I thought we were going to be good. And as it turns out, we're pretty good. We don't need to get into it. That's getting too far into the weeds.
No, but give them the belt.
The whole reason I'm bringing it up beyond just invoking Ohio State was that I wanted to just basically discuss this idea of like someone's got to break up the like Gonzaga and Baylor are what a casual college basketball fan, people we used to work with at the company we worked at before we work here that didn't watch a second of college basketball. It's what they think Duke and Kentucky are every year.
Yes.
That's what Gonzaga and Baylor are actually this year.
If they were wearing Duke and Kentucky jerseys, America would be enthralled.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is what I think happens in college basketball every year. So who like we're now searching for contenders to like break up that party, which is it's so messed up because you just got done saying how nice it is that like Gonzaga's never won one, Baylor's never even been to a Final Four.
I'm saying
like,
it could be a win-win scenario,
and we're already like get those giants out of here. Like we gotta break this up. This is not good. So yeah, we're on the hunt, I guess, as the season has progressed. We as a college basketball community are on the hunt for anybody to challenge these two teams, and maybe they won't, and that makes for fantastic theater as well. Is that we get to the point where it's like, as it turns out, literally nobody can challenge them except themselves, and we get the big showdown where they're both undefeated, I guess.
Well, don't ask us. Ask the coach himself, Mark Few. He was asked this question about who he was worried about. Basically asked if he had a historic team was the first question. He said, that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, isn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong. We're good. We're talented. I really like coaching this team, and I think we're tough to play against. but so is Baylor. We know Baylor. So is Villanova. Throw Villanova into the mix.
Villanova.
So is Texas. Throw Texas into the mix. Texas, though, obviously we just mentioned Shaka Smart. They've been on pause. So is Michigan. Also on pause. He throws them out there.
Say the Buckeyes, Mark. Say it.
He continues. The Virginia team.
Yeah, okay, Virginia.
Your second team.
I like it, but yeah, go ahead.
That we
say the
beat in
Buckeyes,
December
Mark.
is
Say
not the
Buckeyes.
Virginia team that Tony will put on the floor in March.
Mark, where are the Buckeyes?
Villanova's probably got the best win of anyone, winning at Texas, end quote.
Mark, where are the Buckeyes, Mark? Mark, what happened?
But that's what Mark Few says. So if you're looking for teams outside of Baylor to contend with them, he's impressed with Villanova. Yeah. He's impressed with Texas. Yeah. He's impressed with Michigan. So, those might be your three teams. I'm impressed with Ohio State as well, though. So
throw them in the mix. Well, there you go. All right, let's talk about the Blue Bloods, because that's what America really wants to know about. Because none of the teams you just mentioned are. Mark Few is not scared of Kentucky. He did not mention Duke. He did not mention North Carolina. He did not mention Kansas. Those are the four that everyone throws out as Blue Bloods. You want to throw UCLA into the mix, it starts to get dicey with some people. Indiana certainly gets even a little more dicey. Dicier, I guess would be the word. All of these teams, every single team I just mentioned, even if you want to throw UCLA and Indiana in there and make it 6 Blue Bloods, if you want to throw Michigan State in there, if you want to throw Arizona in there, all of these teams are unranked, Tate. All of them are having, in the eyes of the narrative, awful years. This has become a story, and you're speaking in grandiose terms about Baylor's program on the rise and Baylor on the rise, and we've seen Villanova recently rise, and Virginia, and we mentioned Texas Tech. So now we're starting to think: is there a changing of the guard happening? Is all of that group that we just mentioned going to supplant the traditional Blue Bloods?
The New Bloods versus the Blue Bloods. What
the hell's going on, basically? Why the Blue Bloods suck? We know that, but how did we get here? Why do the Blue Bloods suck? Which Blue Bloods suck worse than the others? We should suss this out so people have a clear picture.
Brian Ives, who is our official statistician here, even though he works for a different company, we're going to say he's our official statistician. He said the top 13 winningest programs in college basketball history, all 13 this week, unranked. First time.
Shout out to Temple making that list, by the way.
Number 5.
St. John's was on the list.
Yeah, just like John Chaney, just goes to show how impressive he was at Temple. We just got to point that out. But anyways, you mentioned the Blue Bloods. I'd look at that 13, and I get to 5. And this is where I think we really are in college basketball. There's Duke, there's Kansas, there's Kentucky, there's Michigan State, and
You're throwing Michigan State on there.
Yes, there's North Carolina. These are the 5 teams that when America says the Blue Bloods suck, this is who they're talking about. They're talking about Tom Izzo, they're talking about Roy Williams, they're talking about Calipari, they're talking about Bill Self, they're talking about Coach K. That is who they say. And
if you define it that way, I'll give you Michigan State. If you define it that way.
I personally do not include Michigan State.
But I know what you mean. Yeah.
But America right now at large. I'm giving this is the guide for them, right?
Yeah.
Those 5 together, 24 national championships, 78 Final Fours. Those 5 schools.
None this year.
None this year. But that's where we are. Yeah. All right. So Kentucky started 1-6, and that was like the point where we all looked at Kentucky. We get the 1926 photo of the Kentucky team. We realize how historically bad they are. Kansas was 4-4 in league play, first time in 33 years. That was kind of the moment where you're like, okay, Kansas the bed. Michigan State starts the Big Ten 0-3. That was the moment where people were like,
they beat Duke. They won at Duke, but then so like Michigan State was showing signs of life.
Yes.
But then they started 0-3 in the Big Ten. It was like,
trouble in paradise. Duke was 5-5. That was the first time since 1983.
What are they now? 7-7?
Yeah. So that's who they are. They're a 500 team. But again, there were some moments like Kentucky gets blown out by Alabama at home, the worst loss, in Rupp Arena history. Duke has the worst loss in Cameron Indoor, as I mentioned before, to Illinois. So these like little tipping points all come up, and then Calipari, they just get, they were up 10 with 12 minutes to go against Tennessee in their last game. And after they end up losing the game, Tennessee's guards kind of go off. And Calipari, I think, had the best summation of the Blue Bloods right now. I don't know what to tell you at this point. That's what Calipari said. And I think that's where they all are. I think that there's 2 different, if I wanted to split up the Blue Bloods, like where we are, Duke and Kentucky are sort of in this own, like, just lane of just terrible, right? They are on their own. They are on their own island. Kentucky, I guess, can get out.
Like Duke is still. There's still a path to the tournament.
Yes,
Duke.
yes.
There's still a path.
Winning the ACC tournament.
Yeah,
which they
but
probably
Duke
will.
could theoretically still put it together, and Kentucky's
all right,
garbage.
let's not say terrible. Let's just say we're on the we're a train.
Okay.
We're like
All right.
who's off the rails, who's on the rails.
Okay,
Duke-
like this is a new segment.
Off the rails, on the rails. Duke is off the rails because they lose to North
Yeah.
Carolina. Coach K is literally, he said that they're 18, 19, 20. There should be no panic buttons on young people who have a chance to play at the level of college basketball. If there was a panic button, it would be for 73-year-old people who have coached for 45 years. I don't have one. That's Coach K right now.
That was pretty good.
That's where he is right now. You can't afford to have these buttons, these panic buttons. But they're off the rails, right? Those two. And then I think North Carolina and Kansas and Michigan State, they are more on the rails. Michigan State's probably in the middle.
Michigan State's
Probably in the
third
middle.
rail.
Yeah. They're probably in the middle between there. So it's
What rails we got?
we got 3 rails. North Carolina and Kansas. I think North Carolina is the front train. Kansas is the caboose. But they're on the rails over
I'll
here.
sum it up like this. When I texted you after Carolina beat Duke, I said, great win. You needed it. You had to have it.
Yeah.
And then I said, Carolina doesn't suck. They're just not good.
Yes.
There's a difference.
I would agree with that.
And that's how I feel about Carolina and Kansas in particular. Those two in particular, of the Blue Bloods.
Carolina is the best of the Blue Bloods this year, but they're not that good.
Yeah.
And Kansas, I think Kansas had a real shot to figure it out defensively.
Yeah.
But they've
so I'll
struggled.
break it down like this, like, because I think the question, the big question is this a coincidence? Like, are all the Blue Bloods? Is it a coincidence that they all had like years all together at the exact same time, or is there something greater at play here? And I don't know, but the way I see it, it's sort of a coincidence. Like, I didn't expect Duke or Kentucky to be very good this year anyway.
Yep.
I certainly didn't expect them to be as bad as they are, but I mean, coming into the season, Duke's best player they had coming back was Matthew Hurt, who averaged like 10 points a game last year. Their recruiting class was not what we've seen from Duke recruiting classes in the past, where they got, I mean, the Zion class literally had the top 3 guys in the class. And how much of that's Jeff Capel not being around anymore? You tell me. I don't know.
Yeah,
But the writing was on the wall for Duke to not be awesome this year, at least. Certainly not as bad as they've been, but not awesome, right? We knew that. Same with Kentucky. Like, Kentucky, it didn't feel like there was a buzz around this Kentucky team until Olivier Sarr committed to Kentucky, transferred from Wake Forest. And then
Toppin.
And then people
Those two.
and then people start getting excited a little bit about Kentucky, and they're like, man, BJ Boston, Terrence Clark, Olivier Sarr, like this, the length this team's
Keon
gonna
Brooks,
have.
yeah.
But I was scratching my head and check the tape, release the tape, go back and check it. Like when Olivier Sarr committed and everyone decided, and everyone being Dick Vitale, who put him at a preseason
SEC Player of the Year,
SEC Player of the Year, the scenery changes, but the player doesn't. The laundry changes. Like, if Olivier Sarr, this is my Mark Zuckerberg social network Jesse Eisenberg voice. If you would invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. If Olivier Sarr was good enough to be an All-American, he would have been an All-American, Tate, at Wake Forest. You just see Olivier Sarr with Kentucky on his chest instead of Wake Forest, and you're like, oh my God, he's going to be so good. And he's just like, that was unfair to put those expectations on him. Kansas, you lose Dotson and Azubuike, and Kansas to me is just like a natural, like this just happens to teams from time to time. You lose good players. I think they've been dinged by the FBI reputation, deserved or not, probably deserved, but that's not for me to decide. That's for America to decide. Their recruiting has been impacted to where they're not bringing in guys like
Very similar to North
Yeah.
Carolina, like 2013 to
Right.
2017 window.
So
yeah.
Kansas makes a lot of sense. You lose your interior, your team built on defense. You lose your interior, your stud defender. You lose your point guard.
And
Like,
we
of course,
all
they're not as good as
underestimated
they were.
how incredibly gifted and talented Azubuike was as a defender. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
he was
Oh,
he
yeah.
covered so many holes of Marcus Garrett and these other guys on the perimeter, as we see this year, because they don't have him behind to help.
Right,
I mean,
right, exactly.
It's like a learning. Yeah.
Michigan State, meanwhile, we're talking about point guards, loses Cassius Winston. They have not figured out who the point guard should be. That is going to be a problem all season. They're never.
It's
gonna
Rocket
figure it out.
Watts, but it's not.
But does Rocket Watts want to be the point guard? Is the question. So that one, it just begins and ends there. It's like Michigan State doesn't have a point guard, and all their best players do exactly the same things, and they have like 12 guys who all do the exact same things, and it's far too often like none of them do those things.
Yeah, pretty much.
But Michigan State, again, it's like, I'm not stunned that they're not this good. They are definitely a disappointment, but I mean, it makes sense. You can reverse engineer and say, yeah, you lost Cassius Winston, who's like one of the 3 most important players that Tom Izzo has ever coached in terms of like how much he loved the guy. And yeah, it all checks out that Michigan State would not.
Also, an NBA point guard. You talk about like talent. Like Cassius is playing on the Wizards right now, so like you lose that type of talent. It makes sense. But the real thing with the Blue Bloods is if Coach K has never not made the tournament with 64 teams. Like, think about that. So there's a chance that Coach K, I mean, the last time was 84. So Coach K can miss the tournament. First time in the modern tournament is missed by Coach K. What does that look like for college basketball without him there as a figure to kind of keep this thing on the rails?
So that brings us to North Carolina. What's going on with North Carolina? The story, I really feel like part of the reason you're so excited about North Carolina, you're not so excited, but the reason you're like, now hang on a second, we're not that bad, is because you guys were just so bad last year.
Yes.
So, like, are you actually good or not? Are you in that not sucking / maybe good zone? Or is it just that you're not a bit? Because you guys were Kentucky last year. What Kentucky's going through this year was North Carolina's experience last year. So are you just happy to be out of that?
I'm just so happy. The one thing about the tournament being canceled was the fact that North Carolina did not have to get RIP'd. There was none of that, like, in memoriam for this, program, what's happening here. There was none of that fallout. I think the problem with North Carolina is that some of the older guys, Garrison Brooks, for example, right? The ACC preseason player of the year. Garrison Brooks was a 4-star recruit that was going to go play at Auburn. That did not have a North Carolina offer. But like you said, there is some, NCAA cloud, things like that, still looming over the program. So Garrison Brooks comes to North Carolina. He's there for 4 years, right? He's now playing his 4th year. You would hope that he has now learned, the lay of the land. He is going to play his best basketball, but that's just not the case. That's not in his repertoire. He is not the number 1 guy for this team. But North Carolina basketball, as you know, is a Dean Smith founded program, which is seniority rules. You have earned your stripes here. This is how we will play through you. This is how we do things.
Every senior starts on senior night.
Exactly.
Against Duke, if that's what it takes.
And a freshman point guard at North Carolina was a farce, for the most part. Like, it was not something that they would buy into. But now it is becoming the norm because you have guys that come in like Kobe White who over-exceed expectations and go. And then if you're lucky, you get a top-flight recruit like Cole Anthony who has to go and is a great representation at the next level, but you don't get to enjoy him at North Carolina. So they're in that weird window of like, now we can get the Cole Anthonys of the world, but do we want to do that? Because we saw what happened last year when you buy into, not to say it's Cole Anthony's fault, but like that is not North Carolina quote-unquote basketball. So they're in that weird, kind of whatever rigor mortis stage, almost is like the best way to describe it. And then the guys that they do have, the 5 freshmen that they brought in, they are all 4+ players. I know there are a few of them are 5 stars, but they're all 4+ guys, which means that they have 2 to 3 years to really become who they are. Caleb Love just showed it at Cameron Indoor. Like that was what I wanted to see from Caleb Love. That is him playing up to his, potential. But also, I expect him to have growing pains. But he's also going to be at North Carolina to have those growing pains. So there's an excitement for the future. We know these guys are going to come back. Day'Ron Sharpe is an elite talent. I mean, he somehow is getting worse as the season's going on. But he'll but I still believe in him to figure it out. But I know he's going to come back. And I think that's the thing with North Carolina.
You have a great freshman class.
We have youth, and that's what we buy. Puff Johnson, Cam Johnson's brother's there. Yeah. He's hurt right now, but there's some youth that you can buy into. And then the older guys, like I said, I think if you're a real North Carolina fan, you understand the limitations of who's there.
All right, Tate, let's talk about some players here because last year it was a weird year in the terms of the freshmen have become the storyline of college basketball, as we know, in the one-and-done era ever since 2007, Oden and Durant. It's become the every year we're looking at freshmen to kind of carry college basketball, and that's become a theme. And then last year we get to a point where Vernon Carey is basically the one guy who – I think he made like second-team All-Americans.
And everyone dismissed him. He ends up being a second-round pick. Yeah,
right. But he was like the one guy that of all the freshmen that like
he's a beast.
He was good, but you understand what I'm saying. As a whole, the freshman class last year
was kind of a dud.
Kind of a dud. And that bared itself out.
Sorry, I thought you were just trying to compliment Vernon Carey. So I'm like, Vernon Carey's
No, he was good, but he was alone in that there weren't a bevy of freshmen to get excited about.
Unlike this year.
Not the case this year. So let's give the people our freshman who are some freshmen that have caught your eye?
Freshman to watch, and I think America knows Cade Cunningham. I know you and I are on the Oklahoma State bandwagon. We've been pushing Cade Cunningham.
Tough loss tonight.
Yeah, tough loss tonight. But in general, Cade Cunningham has shown moxie. That's the word. This guy is a winner. It
feels like every game they play in, he's got the ball in his hands with 10 seconds left, and sometimes he screws up.
Yeah.
Sometimes he doesn't, but yeah,
it's fun regardless. So
yeah, it's always fun.
Watching Cade Cunningham, he is like proving why he is so valued. He's proving why he is perennially viewed as the number 1 pick. So we know Cade. The other point guard that you have to know is on the best team in the country, and that's Jalen Suggs. Mm-hmm. And Jalen Suggs' big moment in college basketball this year was what we thought, and this is a lesson to everybody at home. What you see on TV may not always be exactly what is reality. Jalen Suggs looks like he tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
We are watching game live.
Mm-hmm.
This is during the Maui Invitational back in November, or I guess it was in December at that point. And he goes down, does the same thing that KD did, same thing Cousins did. We've seen people tear their Achilles. We know what the move is. Goes to the locker room. We're like, man, we just lost, the best point guard in the country potentially. Mm-hmm. Season over. This man runs back out. It's been unbelievable.
How do you feel about that now that enough time has passed? And
I want
was he
more.
milking it?
Yeah, I want more story.
Yeah, I need more. I didn't know what happened there.
But it's weird because it's I
can't uncry those tears that I cried when I said, "Oh my God, Jalen Suggs is done."
Yeah, we were emotionally manipulated, but it was also, like I said, for those at home, watch it at your own risk, and also don't buy in. Don't think that you already know. You're not a doctor. But that was the Jalen Suggs kind of like just like, damn, this guy's not only tough, but like he's the real deal. So Jalen Suggs, those 2 point guards are really it. And then I think number 3 is the real star that's going to emerge as we get further into the season. It is slowly emerging right now.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley at USC.
Yeah. Yes.
And, you called him Young Shaq. We did our old school, new school. I thought that was, not to say like, this man is going to be Shaquille O'Neal, but I think he's a fascinating
But also
athlete.
he is. He's literally going to be Shaquille O'Neal is what I'm saying. His freshman, I did that like tongue in cheek saying he was Shaq, but then and then I looked up Shaq's freshman year numbers at LSU.
They're very similar.
Oh my God, they're very similar. He does it all, except he also steps out and hits threes and is a great free throw shooter. Yep. Evan Mobley is unbelievable. I genuinely believe Evan Mobley should be a first team All-American. Mm-hmm. I genuinely, and especially obviously if things progress as they are. Like USC is going to win the Pac-12. Yep. USC is the best team in the Pac. They are a very, very good team. Evan Mobley is going to be a top 5 pick probably. He's an absolute stud. Watch him if you haven't. I don't know what else to say to convince people. He's very, very, very good.
He is the quintessential 5-star. Like when we talk about guys that are top flight players that you tune in to watch, it is Evan Mobley. And, you and I always joke about this. You can always tell who the 5-star on the team is. When we were watching Stanford, we're like, which one is Zaire Williams? And he walks out, you're like, there he is.
Yeah,
and Evan Mobley, like he walks out, you're like, there he is.
The airport test.
Yeah, exactly.
Greg Brown passed. Yeah, like Texas. We were watching him in Nashville.
Kai Jones, Greg Brown.
I've not seen Greg Brown ever play. I never like looked up his YouTube. I just knew that there was this kid, Greg Brown, for Texas. That was a 5-star, and I was like, I wonder which one. There he is. He's gonna be the guy that looks like Kevin Durant. That's the guy. The guy that looks like he's 7 feet tall and is stepping out. And
and his arms are just like hanging down past his knees.
That's probably the 5-star. That's him. So those are the big 3 you would say. We'll throw Sharif Cooper into the mix. Unfortunately, not going to play in the NCAA tournament. The point guard at Auburn, who was out for a little while because of eligibility issues. Thought he was going to go pro. Decides to not go pro. Comes to Auburn, gets eligible, and has just been balling out of his mind. He's so good. If you're an NBA fan, watch him play for sure. But also, if you're like just trying to get into like narratives of college basketball, like honestly, kind of irrelevant tape.
Pretty.
He's not going to play in March Madness, and it sucks. It's a bummer. But can Auburn pull that? By the way, like it was self-imposed. Their ban. Can they just be like, wait a second?
I think if they were winning games,
take it back.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl would definitely do that. Yeah. And then speaking of, Oklahoma State, a lot of people thought that they would have a postseason ban. They are pushing it into the next year, basically just stalling it out as long as they can.
Procrastinating, basically.
Yeah, which is what we
love. I'll deal with
love.
it tomorrow.
Yeah, we love to see that in college basketball. But Sharif Cooper is an NBA point guard. He is, like you said, if you're a draftnik and you want to be, informed on a top 5 point guard that's going to shock some people because they haven't seen him play, Sharif Cooper's the guy.
Yeah, watch Auburn. But if you're someone who's just like, I want to get a feel of guys that are going to go Kemba Walker and
not him.
He would be,
but not this year.
He's not eligible, so he can't be. Who are some other guys?
Yeah, some other guys. This is like the second tier. Hunter Dickinson at Michigan, I think, a big guy who has basically blown up. It feels
he's the
like
reason
this season.
Michigan's so good. Like he's the Michigan was thought to be okay. I think they were ranked preseason, but they were in the 20s.
Yeah, like 22, 23,
something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
The reason Michigan is now ranked third in the country is because Hunter Dickinson is so much better than anyone. It's all coming. And probably Juwan Howard included.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's another guy to watch. Moses Moody at Arkansas on the Must Bus. Moses Moody, he's had some interesting games where he'll flare up and just like drop 25 points, and you're just like, man, this guy is the real deal. But then he has some duds. But he's a fun ride in Arkansas. I think they're like number 15, something like that in the country in points per game. So if you just want to watch a high-scoring offense that makes turnovers, they make mistakes, but they're in a lot of games. Arkansas is a fun team with Moses Moody. He's going to be a top 15 pick. Cameron Thomas at LSU, Will Wade, of course, always having 5-star guys.
Bubble team.
Bubble team to watch out for.
Yeah. Are they gonna?
And Cameron Thomas is a guy that's going to get picked in the NBA draft, so you want to just know him,
We haven't mentioned Scotty Barnes.
I love Scotty Barnes.
Is he starting now? He's not. He lost his starting spot.
I think he's a sixth man now. Yeah,
Leonard Hamilton.
I mean, Florida State makes no sense. Like, in fact, if you haven't watched Florida State, just wait till the tournament. You know what I mean? Things are going to change.
It's almost better with Florida State. Just wait till the tournament. Just know they're good. Know they're lurking.
Yeah.
And know that they're talented, and more athletic than everyone else.
Exactly. And it's funny because everyone seems to you and we're guilty of this as well. But when you talk about Florida State, because they have so many guys that can play and get them buckets and get them points, like we all default to Scotty Barnes. We're like, yeah, and of course, Scotty Barnes. And
he hit the game winner to beat Indiana.
That's right.
So that counts for something.
There you go.
Yeah. And then Greg Brown, I mentioned him earlier. I had him on my list. He's the last guy I felt like mentioning. He's the Texas freshman from Austin, local kid. I've loved watching him play this year, and it's weird, Tate, because I feel like if you would have asked me my thoughts on how well Greg Brown's freshman season's going, I would have said it's slightly disappointing. And the kid's averaging 11 and 8 a game for a team that's a top 10 team and has been all season. And that's hilarious to me because that's just how good he is. Is that like 11? Only 11 and 8.
You kind of just want more.
You just kind of want like a little more, and you're like, what? That makes no sense.
Last guy I have, Jaden Springer from Tennessee, 18-year-old combo shooting guard that was originally committed to Penny Hardaway. This was Penny's guy. Penny had him locked in 2019, and we remember Penny called out Rick Barnes. This was like a little rivalry that we were getting in Tennessee. Loses Springer. Springer goes off for 23 points against Kentucky. After the game, Calipari basically is like, I wish that was
why is that
guy not on my team? So Jaden Springer, Tennessee's getting hot right now, and they have young guards. They got young guards I like, and then they got Pons, and they got Fulkerson. So they have, that's a team to watch as well.
Another interesting point I want to make about individual players, and we've talked about a lot of the guys. We can kind of rehash them in this context. Last year, another thing that happened was a lot of these guys who were projected to be lottery picks, say your Anthony Edwards or your who else went in the lottery? James Wiseman, for example. Both of them are freshmen. These guys were on teams that were not good. Anthony Edwards was on a Georgia team that was not going to make the NCAA tournament, even if there was one. And that was a weird thing because you want, ideally, the perfect college basketball season is the best players who are going to get drafted at the highest are on the best teams.
Yeah, Ben Simmons tried to kill that.
Yeah, Ben Simmons tried to kill that.
We refused to let that happen.
Markelle Fultz is another example of that. We don't like when that happens.
We've been taking some hits.
We don't like when that happens.
It's a war on college basketball.
It happened last year. I'm happy to report it is not happening this year. Jalen Suggs might be the number 1 pick, is on the best team in the country.
By far.
The Gonzaga. Evan Mobley, I just said USC is going to win. Evan Mobley's going to be a top 5 pick. USC is probably going to win the Pac-12. They'll be, Lord knows how high this. They'll probably be an 8 seed because the committee hates the Pac-12. But USC is a very good basketball team.
Yep.
Scotty Barnes, Florida State, as we said. I don't know what other examples do we want to. Zaire Williams, you mentioned earlier. I don't know if he was cleared to come back. I don't know if he's playing again or not, but he's supposed to be back anytime now. Stanford's kind of a bubble team, so they're interesting. They've had Stanford's so much better than their resume would suggest because they haven't played at home for most of the season. They've had a ton of injury problems. So they get Zaire Williams back. They're interesting. Who else we've got to mention?
I mean, Greg Brown, obviously at Texas. Texas is the team that could go to the Final Four. Hunter Dickinson with Michigan could go to the Final Four. I mean, even Arkansas, like Moses Moody is a winner. I will.
Oh, you're saying that.
I'm saying that. He is a winner. I'm not saying that Arkansas is going to win.
Says cease and desist.
Yeah.
Sir.
Moses Moody is a winner. And, I have you have an affinity for people named Moses. Like your dog, obviously, named Moses. Moses Malone. I mean, man, the Windex man. Like a soft spot for him always.
We mentioned Greg Brown at Texas. There's Kai Jones at Texas.
Sophomore Kai Jones. Or redshirt freshman, I think. Yeah.
Who else am I looking at here? Franz Wagner is a guy I want to bring up. He's Mo Wagner's brother.
He's a top 15
He's
pick.
Michigan's best player. Hunter Dickinson's the reason they're so good in the sense of like they're getting more production out of him than they expected. But Franz Wagner's their best player.
And I like Franz a lot more than his brother. I will say that. And I had a lot of beef with his older brother when he was at Michigan. But Franz is great. James Bouknight for UConn.
James Bouknight's the guy. James Bouknight is supposed to come back. He's coming back any day now. UConn. This has all the makings.
That could be a lottery pick.
This has all the makings of a typical UConn run with Bouknight playing the Shabazz Napier, Kemba Walker role. Yeah, he's unbelievable, and he's supposed to come back any day now, right?
Yeah, it's like imminent is what they said. That was the word that they used, imminent, which says to me that UConn knows that when he comes back, I mean, he already had a 40-piece this season.
Yeah.
So James Bouknight is definitely someone to watch. I have Terrence Shannon Jr. and Mac McClung both on Texas Tech. Number 7 team in the country. I'm not saying Mac McClung. I'm not saying he's going to be a lottery guy.
Will it into existence.
Yeah.
No, not lottery, but I mean, he's going to get drafted, right? By someone? Second round, at least.
Second round, yeah. I think deep second round.
2 guys I'm interested in terms of draft potential. I have no idea where I don't know what the preeminent mock draft is anymore, but so I don't know. Maybe
Kevin O'Connor.
Maybe some of them have him and very high up, but I'm fascinated to see what happens with Ayo Dosunmu at Illinois.
I've seen him pretty much 30 every mock draft.
Dude, I love him. I don't understand.
How is a 6'5" guy like that? Just
so
disrespected,
good.
Yeah.
So good. And then Jared Butler, I'm slowly talking myself into, like, this guy's going to have a long NBA career. I'm not saying you should spend a top 10 pick on him, but, like, he's a guy that you're going to look up, and he's going to be playing for the Spurs in 13 years and just making shots.
He reminds me of Monte Morris, who's on the Nuggets right now, and I can see him having that sort of, like, 6-man type second point guard role for a team that's a contender, a playoff team. I can see that as well. Charles Bassey on Western Kentucky is another guy that needs to be mentioned, who's probably going to be a first-round pick.
Is Western Kentucky making the tournament?
I think so. They beat Alabama. People forget this.
They did beat Alabama.
Yeah. So, wow, Rick Stansbury in the tournament. And Ron Harper Jr., that's my last one, at Rutgers.
Oh, yeah. Ron Harper Jr.
Yeah.
He's got the, if you're a fan of, like, guys that look like they could lose a few, but also, like, that's what makes them kind of good, so you don't want them to actually lose the few.
Yeah.
That's
the Mike Dom.
Jr. Yeah, the Mike. Ron Harper Jr. is awesome. We love him. All right, so let's wrap it up with this. What are some things what are reasons to watch college basketball between now and Selection Sunday? Would you say? What are your big bullet points? What are you keeping an eye on?
Yeah, my number one thing that I wrote down, and it's not even. I know it's going to sound like a hater, but it's Coach K missing his first tournament and his reaction,
or not missing his tournament, because I think that's something like I'm excited for that for this last 5 weeks of like Duke wins a game.
Yes.
You're like
on the rails, off the rails.
Duke back, third rail. On rail, off rail, third rail.
What does he do? Because, I mean, Coach K, when Harrison Barnes Skyped in and said, I am going to play basketball at North Carolina, Coach K threw a chair. What happens when he doesn't make the tournament for the first time in the modern era? Really? Like, that is a storyline to watch.
I think he guts his staff and he starts over.
I think he says we don't have a tournament. I think he
tried to
pivots.
get everybody. Never forget, Coach K at the start of the season tried to get every team to make this year's tournament.
So much so that Kara Lawson, the women's team, did do it.
They just quit.
And then when they looked at Coach K, they're like, weren't you supposed to do this? He's like, no.
Yeah, Coach K tried to get every team in the tournament, and then he flipped the other way. He tried to cancel everybody out of the tournament. I had a few things. Number one, the Big Ten title race. Obviously, I'm a Big Ten guy, and Ohio State is in the hunt, and Illinois is up there. Michigan is 8-1. Ohio State is 9-4. Illinois is 9-3. The Big Ten title race still matters. Michigan's been on pause forever, though. Are they dodging Illinois, Tate? That's what people are saying. Whether they are or not, Illinois fans think they are, and now it's going to get contentious between Illinois and Michigan. But also, don't sleep on Ohio State because the Buckeyes might actually be the best team of the three. So I have my eye on that. I also wanted to draw attention to the All-American teams as we're filling them out. Let's should we quickly run through them? I mean, we got Luka Garza's a lock. He's going to win National Player of the Year. I think Jared Butler's a lock. We both agree with that. Corey Kispert, lock?
I think they have to put someone from Gonzaga, so it's de facto lock.
It's going to be Kid. I mean, not that he doesn't deserve it. He's unbelievable.
They could have picked 3 guys.
They
so
could have picked any of the 3,
one,
but it's going to be him.
Suggs you could make the argument, but yeah.
So that's 3. Is Ayo a lock? He's working his way into a lock.
I think Ayo's a lock.
I think Dosunmu is working his way into a lock.
Dosunmu is the one that I think a casual fan would love. Like
you would absolutely love Dosunmu.
Yeah.
If you're looking
Illinois
for a team to
team.
jump on the bandwagon, and
it's the Fighting Illini.
The Illini
a lot of Chicago sports fans.
Right.
Illinois right now.
And then the last spot. I mean, we got like Suggs, as you mentioned earlier. We got Evan Mobley. I think Mobley is gonna.
Like Mobley's
gonna get it. Cade Cunningham certainly, but I think he's kind of fallen. Like I don't know. We're kind of taking him for granted and just sort of like he's just kind of been steady the whole year. Not a sexy pick per se. Jay Huff is the interesting one. You hate this. But Jay Huff of Virginia, I think, has a puncher's chance of being a first-team All-American. A puncher's chance.
Someone tweeted this at us. Jay Huff is the only player in the country with a player efficiency rating of at least 35 and an effective field goal percentage of at least 70%.
Yeah.
The only other player to do that in a season in the past 10 years.
Dude.
Was drumroll please?
I know.
Zion Williamson. My gosh.
You're right. The reason I think J. Ruff has a chance is because the Virginia nerds are just going to throw all their stats at the Wahoo Nation faithful on Twitter is very vocal, and they are going to throw all their nerd stats at reporters and guilt them into like basically saying if you don't vote for Jay Huff, you're a moron and you're not equipped to be a modern sports reporter. You don't understand advanced.
Yeah, you don't get it.
You don't get it.
You don't get it. Yeah.
The game has passed you by unless you vote for Jay Huff for first team All-American.
Yeah, the things that we're doing over here, the math that has nothing to do with that game, the game has passed you by.
What else?
The A10 race. So a lot of people at home are like, these guys don't know anything. Yeah, they only talk about the big guys. The Atlantic 10 right now, we got a lot of teams, involved to see who's going to. St. Bonnie's, the Bonaventures are at the top. We got VCU half a game back. We got Davidson half a game back. We got UMass half a game back. We got the Richmond Spiders 1 game back, and we got the Dayton Flyers 1 game back. So the A10, I mean, that is a lot of good teams. Rhode Island also knocking on the door. Duquesne, the Dukes knocking on the door. So the A10 race throughout the rest of the season will be fun. So I had to throw that out there. I also want to point it out, the best new basketball rivalry around, Ohio State versus Michigan. That is something to watch down the stretch. Both teams think that they are the third best team in the country. Again, this is Big Ten basketball. Who is the third best team in the country?
Stat of the day.
We are going to fight for this, so that's something to watch down the stretch. I'm excited for that.
Well, in all seriousness, just trying to figure out if whoever the third best team is, can they? Narrowing the gap between Gonzaga, Baylor, and the rest of the field is something to keep an eye on. Like trying to find candidates. Alabama might be a candidate. Yeah. Alabama shoots a lot of threes. They play great defense. It makes a lot of sense that they could beat anybody, and they certainly can. But are they as good as Gonzaga and Baylor? I don't know. But they only have to be one night. That's how the tournament works. So,
that's one of my other storylines. Mac McClung and Chris Beard's fireside tour through the tournament. I am very much watching those two guys. I also have Will Shaka Smart and Texas return to form. This is the team that we thought that was going to go to the Final Four again. They're dealing with a COVID lull, so we'll see if they can get back to that. USC, I just put USC. I don't know. I don't know what to watch.
No, that's good. That's
just USC. Just watch them play.
That's what USC fans want.
Yeah, exactly. Just watch them play. And then my final one, UConn with James Bouknight. I know I just mentioned it before, but I think that might be the best show in college basketball.
Yeah.
Imminent return.
Yeah, I mean, I made a list of. Someone asked us to go over like teams that are fun. Like who's a team that would be if you're someone who typically cheers for Duke and Kentucky because you're the worst. You're Drake.
Yes.
Drake.
Who is Drake pulling for? It's not Drake anymore because Drake lost. So he's like
Drake did lose.
Yeah, I'm out.
So who should fill in the gaps of Duke and Kentucky if you're a bandwagon person, or just who are fun teams to cheer for? Alabama certainly, I mentioned earlier. They play great D. They shoot a ton of threes. They basically only shoot threes and layups. They're the best 3-point shooting team in the country other than Baylor, right? I think it's Baylor now. If not, whatever, close enough. You get the idea. I think the Buckeyes have to be on that list.
Yeah, they're a great offensive team. Yeah,
great offensive team. Our two flaws are we sometimes don't play the best defense, and we sometimes can choke games away down the stretch, which are famously
just what you won the tournament.
Famously two things that never come back to bite you in the tournament. But all of our games they're fun to watch. So and then UConn would be another one I would say because of Bouknight and just the whole. It's not just that Bouknight is that good; it's that Hurley lets him loose.
Yeah, he's like basically you go. We will go as far as you take us, James.
Yeah,
and that's a fun
Dan
ride.
Hurley just gets in his face and like hypes him up, and it's so good.
The one team I want to give like a little hesitation, right? You're a casual fan. You're looking at the standings. You're saying, I don't want to do Baylor. I don't want to do Gonzaga. I don't want to do Villanova. I don't want to do Michigan. I don't want to do Ohio State. And you see Houston. And you have this like moment where you're like, that seems perfect for me. I just want to say, pause. I'm going to press the pause button.
You're saying don't do it.
Don't do it.
Okay, I was going to say, you're saying do it. I was like,
Houston looks the part, right? Like you come in, you say, wow, they're a top 10 team. This is great. I love Sampson. He seems like a great coach, and they got some talent there. What's going on here? they are dodging people, and they're in dodge mode, which is let's sustain. Like, let's make sure that we show good face here, which is not we're really good and we want to play anybody.
Right.
And that is not necessarily a team that you want to be riding with. So I just want to say Houston seems like a sexy pick, but just watch out.
I think you could throw West Virginia in the mix.
West Virginia is another team like
West
that.
Virginia is, all right, let's what else we got? I wanted to say this. My final point is this for people listening is that Rick Pitino to Boston College is still on the table. I just wanted to bring that back to the forefront of America's attention. That I called Rick Pitino to Boston College when he decided he was going to go to Iona. We all knew he's not going to end up at Iona. He's going to use that as a jumping off point to take a major job. Yeah. And Boston College made the most sense. Jim Christian is good guy of the millennium, and it feels like Jim Christian, his time might be winding down at BC. And insert Rick Pitino, a man who coached at Boston University, coached the Boston Celtics, coached at Providence, which isn't Boston but close enough. This is a man who knows the area. This is a man who is a Catholic man at a Catholic university. It all makes sense. It all checks out. Boston College is a program that has been desperate to get back to the 2005-ish era, the Jared Dudley era. It's been a long way.
I like the Tyrese Rice era. That was my favorite.
The Kai Bowman era.
That was Jerome Robinson and Kai Bowman. That was a good era.
Those 3 games when they looked like they were good.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, Tate, and I think they're willing to take a risk, and that risk is named Rick, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. So keep an eye on that. That's something to keep an eye on.
Rick Pitino got Patrick Ewing to put Boston University in his top 3.
Yeah.
People forget that. Rick Pitino, that's how good of a recruiter he is. So when he goes to Boston College, you have to respect what they're going to be. He's going to be on the air saying, I'll get 4+ players here. I don't do 5 stars. I get 4+ players.
That's it. That's the show. We are back to regularly scheduled programming on Friday. Again, apologies to those of you who are diehard college basketball fans. Are like, what the hell? You just told me everything I already know.
But if you forgot what we said,
we're just kind of setting the stage a little bit for you. So now you can hit the ground running, and it's full steam ahead, baby. We're less than 5 weeks till Selection Sunday. Less than 5 weeks. A little over 5 weeks. The tournament will have started, Tate. It's happening.
Wow.
It's all happening.
Yeah,
and
I feel it.
We are now is the time. Tell your friends, listen to the show, subscribe, review, do all that.
Do all that. You know all that. You know what it is. Yeah.
You know what it is. We'll see you guys Friday.